Welcome to the Filmcast review of Transformers Rise of the Beasts. I'm going to read the plot summary from IMDb. During the 90s, a new faction of Transformers, the Maximals, joined the Autobots as allies in the battle for Earth. End quote. I'm David Chen here with Devindra and Jeff Kanata. I do want to point out my ankle is badly injured today, and so it's propped up a little bit. So if I'm sitting further back, or if I seem a little bit more lackadaisical than usual, it's not just because I don't care about Devindra and Jeff's opinions.
Yeah,
it's because
you're in a lounge chair. You're just like ready to give up on this movie.
Dave twisted his ankle running out of the movie theater to tell everybody what he thought of it.
It's more of I'm in a rear window situation right now, where I'm sitting at home thinking about Transformers Rise of the Beasts all day. But anyway, yes, that's why I'm a little weird. My position is a little bit weird in the youtube.com/@thefilmcastpodreview. But Transformers, I remember one of my favorite tweets that Devindra Hardawar ever made was when he said Dave Chen is great. But the second favorite tweet, no, I'm just joking. My favorite tweet is when Devindra Hardawar tweeted, "More like Transformers Age of Extinction of my interest in this franchise." That was a pretty rough movie.
I went to a Transformers movie and I didn't even get to hang out with Paul Scheer. What are we even doing?
It's so true. It's so true. We did do a review with Paul Scheer. That was a lot of fun. But so Transformers Rise of the Beast. It's worth pointing out this movie made a little over $60 million this weekend, putting it on track for other Transformers movies like Bumblebee and The Last Night in terms of domestic gross. The movie's doing pretty well in China, so there is some life left in this franchise yet. But Devindra Hardawar, I'm curious, after a franchise that has squandered virtually all of our goodwill because of endless movies that have been completely incoherent with nonstop violent action and just offensive
racist
robots and invocations of the Romeo and Juliet rule for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
What do you think of Transformers Rise of the Beasts?
Well, Dave, I was prepared to hate this movie and to hate this franchise because we have been subjected to so much that even Michael Bay himself is disavowing the second movie. What was that one called? The one during the writer's strike where they basically just had no script.
Revenge of the Fallen, I think. Is that what it was?
Okay, I'll believe that. But yeah, they just kind of made a movie and nothing made any sense. And even as we reviewed it, I was like, this is the downfall of cinema. I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't hate this movie. I actually think there's a lot going for it. There's also a lot I didn't realize going into this movie because I had just basically we were working with the belief that we were not going to review this movie in general.
You lobbied hard for us not to, Devindra.
Devindra was on the forefront of us not reviewing Transformers Rise.
I was trying to save us. But you know what? There are a few interesting things here. I didn't know this was going to be a 90s period movie. I didn't know this was going to be set in Brooklyn. I didn't even realize it was starring Anthony Ramos, who I really enjoy and everything. So it has a lot of good elements. Also, Dominique Fishback is a co-star here too, and she was in that Amazon show we were just talking about, and I think she's a really talented star. And also, this thing is directed by Stephen Caple Jr. He did Creed 2, but he also directed that new Transformers Earthspark series I've been talking about. That's the new CG one that's on Paramount. So I was like, okay, there's stuff happening here. I think the first half of this movie is actually fun and interesting and feels different, and the action is clear and I can see what's happening, and I love the music. I love the vibes of it. I love the sort of perspective of it because the Transformers movies have never done a good job of highlighting, other people other than white dudes. There is a very good Marky Mark joke in this movie. There is a lot of great I think anti-cop symbolism that is just it's kind of interesting. The perspective of this movie, it has an actual perspective other than Michael Bay, shooting action figures at each other. And then it has to turn into a wider Transformers movie. And then it falls apart because you got to do this thing. You got to do the big battle. You got to have the big, ray in the sky. I was disappointed in the second half, but I was surprised by how much I dug the first one and how much I'd like to see, this creative team, or at least Ray Caple Jr. and and these stars, Stephen Caple Jr. and these stars kind of come back and do something here. Ultimately, this movie is not. It's not for adults. Transformers are beyond adult comprehension. This was a show made to sell toys to children. That's what it is. And you're reminded of that
The word
specifically at the end.
maximal should tell you all you need to know in that regard.
Everything. But there were things, I think we get a view of Unicron here that was like, oh, that's a cool image. It's kind of scary for a world where the MCU was too scary to give. They were too scared to do Galactus. So we got Unicron. There are things I like. I didn't hate this movie, and that I think alone is an accomplishment. But I wish it didn't have to turn to such like a very stereotypical Transformers crap fest by the end.
Well, that was what always made those original Transformers movies by Michael Bay so weird, because they are based on this toy line, but most of them are 2.5 hours long, so they're really, really long. They have, in my opinion, PG-13 bordering on rated R action, just in terms of how violent and how many explosions there are, and they have just patently offensive and juvenile humor. So it just felt like this weird mix of elements that, for some reason, led Michael Bay to spend a decade of his life.
It was
making
Michael
Transformers
Bay's
movies.
inner child, like let loose on a movie franchise, and he could do whatever he wanted.
It was so it's so weird. It was like we got an insight into his id via the Transformers series that just happened to be based on this toy line for kids, and it was like, but it could have been anything else. It could have been a movie series about extra fruit mix gum. Like I'm putting it up to the screen.
And anything that explodes, just give him
Thanks for
something
the
that explodes.
sponsorship. Extra fruit mix.
It could have been about Mentos. It could have been and it could have been about anything. And the he didn't give a crap about Transformers other than that they were like giant robots that could kill things, right?
And I will also say, I don't hate the entire franchise. I've gone to bat for the first movie. I think the first movie is still enjoyable. There are Steven Spielberg's fingerprints in that movie. So at the very least, no matter what you think of Michael Bay, Steven Spielberg had a creative impact on the first Transformers movie. And I think that was the first movie to be like, hey, you can make giant robots work alongside normal humans and make it look real. And as a fan of Gundam and as a fan of Transformers when I was a kid, I've wanted to see that for a very long time. So I like the first Transformers. It just kind of all fell apart right after that.
Jeff Kanata, your thoughts on Transformers Rise of the Beasts?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say my thoughts on Transformers Rise of the Beasts is best summed up in the form of a limerick.
Hit us, Jeff.
Just because this one is comparable to the earlier films, it seems bearable. But a stupid MacGuffin and beasts that they stuff in makes this Transformers sequel still terrible.
Wow.
Stuff it.
Yeah, nice stuff in use.
Very nice.
That was very good. And I'm sorry you didn't like this, Jeff. What's your reaction there?
It is less bad, but not bad, right?
It is less bad. Yes.
There's a spectrum of bad. I will admit there's a spectrum of bad, and this is on the less bad scale, especially compared. I have never seen Bumblebee. I have not seen Bumblebee.
I still need to see Bumblebee. Yeah.
People tell me it's actually pretty decent. I have not seen that.
I have seen Bumblebee. It is a decent kind of coming of age with Transformers action film. That's
like a prequel to this one. Like this is a follow up to Bumblebee.
Well, that's
very clunkily referenced in this movie, by the way. Yeah.
Why is this movie set in 1994?
Because the music bangs like that. It's great.
It sounds good. Yes, I love the music.
Let me tell you why. I mean, I think there's many reasons to set this in 1994, but one big reason is it completely eliminates a lot of the baggage of the other Transformers movies.
So is this a reboot? Yes. Is this a side boot? Is this supposed to have happened before the first Transformers movie?
I think so. Yes.
So they had this adventure and then they fucked off and then they can't, Okay.
Unclear what happened between this and the first Transformers movie, but
Well, I'm sure we have multiple sequels to tell us, one for each decade, moving up toward it.
And then they left.
The 2000s one is just going to be.
They're all going to be on those.
Transformers caused 9/11. Oh no!
They'll be on those blue IMAX through the whole movie. This movie is very bad. I think there are glimmers of not bad in it, but not much. One of them is Anthony Ramos, who should not be slumming it in this movie. He should not have to steep so low as to be in this movie, because he's actually a really charismatic, great actor. He's a young star, and every time we're on a close up on this guy, I believe everything he's saying, even if it's the most schlocky stuff, and it often is in this movie.
The setup with him and his brother and his mom and everything, perfect. Like,
Is
I
it?
really dug it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think everything in this movie is, if you told me this movie was written by an AI, I would believe you. This movie is, everything is off the shelf. As I said in the limerick, there's a MacGuffin in this movie that couldn't be more MacGuffin. It's like, we need a thing. What's the thing? It doesn't matter what the thing is. We need
cut
it.
the thing in half, and now you're gonna get 2 things.
That's 2 things. Well, we
It's
need
2
double
things.
the thing. You thought you got the thing. You didn't. You need more thing. And it's
what's funny,
doesn't-
Jeff. Even if this was written by AI, that would still put it above Transformers, the second one, Revenge of the Fallen, which was not even written.
ChatGPT can write a better script than several of the Transformers.
Than no humans. Yeah. Than scab writers. The plot is so, like, it literally could be any Transformers movie. There's nothing about it that needs to be in 1994. There's nothing about it that is interesting or unique. You get these Maximals, and I need a quick sidebar with you guys for a second. Quick sidebar. Just quick sidebar. 2 things. 2 sidebars. Sidebar A and sidebar B. Sidebar A is,
I'm not a crackpot, but
we're in extreme close-up now.
We have an ape that turns into a robot.
Yes.
Which makes no sense at all, because what's the functional difference there? Okay, that's sidebar A. It makes no sense that he's a anthropod that turns into a different anthropod. I don't understand. Second, much more important to me, and please help me understand. Robots. They are metal ape, metal bird, metal cheetah, whatever it is.
I'm with you.
Ape has shoulder hair.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? It's, if you look at it, it's not, it's different. There's like a shoulder pad. He's got metal and gears, and his face is metal and gears, and they move. And that's cool. We've established that metal in this world moves. It reshapes itself like lips for some reason. That's cool. Okay, we've got many movies establishing that. And there's metal underpinnings, but he's got this shoulder pad that has hair on it.
Mm-hmm.
What did that come from? It's not robot hair. It's not metal. It's not pipes that look like hair. It's hair.
Organic material over a metal endoskeleton.
But what is that? What is that? What does that mean about Transformers? What does that mean? Why do they have organic material on them?
Why do they have animals that are like on Earth? Does the Transformers cause life on Earth?
Well, okay, so no, that's another thing that pisses me off.
Why are there Earth-like animals?
We know that from the cartoon. They've explained it, but the movies ignore that. The whole point is they're robots in disguise. They came here and they needed to pretend to be things.
But they're over there as our things.
But not in the cartoon. In the cartoon, they're over there as their own things. And they come here and they scan our things to be robots in disguise on Earth. But the movies care not about that plot point, which is the fundamental idea of what these things are. Okay. But this movie, like, literally,
you mad, bro?
Yeah.
You mad, Jeff?
This is sidebars. That's not even pertinent to my main point, which is this. There's nothing that happens in this movie that is interesting at all. At all. Nothing is interesting. There's a bunch of, like, famous people's voices that we all recognize that are making jokey jokes. And I guess that's fun. I guess it's fun to listen to Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson is a robot.
Michelle Yeoh.
We got to hear Academy Award-winning actor Michelle Yeoh's voice come out of an eagle-shaped Maximal named Air Razor, Jeff Kanata. I don't know what more you want out of. I don't know what more you want out of cinema, honestly.
I'm not exaggerating in that I had a moment of existential crisis in the middle of this movie. When I said to myself, I said, self, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I know I'm the poster child on the show for enthusiasm when it comes to Marvel movies. And there's not that far a distance between the infantilization. What is the word I'm looking for? The infantizing. What's the word I'm looking for?
Infantilization.
Thank you. Infantilization of America re comic books and the infantilization of America re toys in this case. But I did have that moment of like, what do we do? We're spending there's so much money on the screen here. to talk about Maximals? And I get it. Other people have that reaction when they see, Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and whoever. I get it. Like, it's the same. There's
this
plenty
was
of
me
people
during Age of Extinction. Like, I don't talking about dinosaur robots. Okay, sure.
I just like, this movie is not as bad as the other ones. It's not like offensively bad. It's just bad. And there's nothing original in it, nothing interesting. Everything plays out exactly as you expect it to. There's the only thing that is interesting about this movie is like the last 2 minutes, and you go, well, okay, well, maybe that'll be interesting. But
I will say, I think there are interesting elements especially for people of color, to have a person of color directing this, to have like the specter of racism is always there. Somebody along the lines, like somebody's telling Anthony Ramos, like, I'm not going to let somebody like you destroy something I built. And to me, that sounds like something all the shitty racist fans say to any person of color entering a franchise. Like, all this stuff is very, very pointed. So
I think that's fair.
I just like
love
that registered with me. Yeah.
I wish that was in a better movie.
I wish the movie had like addressed more of that, but that is more than nothing. That's more than nothing that was in the other movie. So yeah,
fair. Yeah. I won't dispute that. I will say I wish that was in a better movie. I wish that was wrapped in a movie that cared enough to try literally anything. That's like, literally the movie is about, like, we need a thing, let's go get the thing and have battle. Like, there's not even a
there's
plot.
Also, we will talk about this maybe in spoilers, but there is a sort of like moral dilemma in this that does not exist in any of the others, and that's the thing that will save the Transformers will not save humanity, or at least like the thing that could save humanity screws the Transformers over. And at least, again, the movie doesn't have enough time to wrestle with that.
Yeah, exactly.
That is there.
And it's 2 hours plus running time. It doesn't have enough time to actually.
Yeah.
It sets
so basically, it's approximately 3 hours shorter than most of the other Transformers movies.
Yeah, right. But it sets up. You're right. It sets up a moral quandary. It sets up our main character going, "Hey, I'm going to do something that might not be good for everybody," and then it completely drops that thread 100%. Like, there's nothing. There was no moment of decision for our main character to wrestle with that question. I'm sorry. I did not care for this movie.
All right. Well, I think a question that Jeff's review raises is there a place in cinema or in the multiplex for a movie that's about robots beating the crap out of each other that's aimed at kids, right? Like, that's what this is, I think. And there's actually, honestly, very few movies in the Transformers franchise that fall into that category, I would argue.
Although people do swear quite a lot in this movie, so
yeah. But I mean, like, the of all the Transformers movies that have been made, the only ones I'd feel comfortable showing my family are the Bumblebee movie and this,
and the first one.
I don't know about. I wouldn't take my 7-year-old to this.
I mean, more so than the other Transformers movies.
Yeah.
Well, again, scale of bad.
I think this movie is pretty solid, mindless entertainment. And it's not as good as it could be. They could have taken some interesting chances, but Devindra's brought up some great points. A significant part of this movie takes place in Peru for some reason, and it seems
that must
to be
have been a bitch to film. To like, oh yeah, I get to make a Transformers movie. We're going to the Peruvian, like, all the ancient buildings and stuff. Oh
yeah,
man.
It looks pretty impressive. Like, just and you can imagine, like, trying to film on location would have been challenging, but I think it's good, mindless fun. It's inoffensive, and also the ending, as Jeff kind of alluded to, that we'll discuss momentarily, was very, very exciting for me. But beyond that,
you were the one person in the theater who was like clapping.
Oh
yes,
literally my wife and I were screaming, like literally screaming out loud.
All the kids were looking at you. All the kids around you were like, "What?"
Screaming. Like,
I don't want to. We got to talk about that. We got to table that and talk about it later. But I will also concede that I might be the total minority opinion on this one, because I had the misfortune of seeing this movie at a radio screening. Oftentimes they'll pair press screenings with a radio station. I think we've talked about this before on the show. I don't know who goes to radio screenings. I don't know who's listening to the radio
the
and
worst
calling
folks.
Yeah. I mean, there was a baby crying throughout my entire screening.
Yeah.
But there were people applauding at the end of this movie. So,
Yeah.
it's made for
Yeah.
somebody.
This is what the people want,
If you have the option, ladies and gentlemen, in this marketplace of ideas we live in, to go see Across the Spider-Verse. It's literally across the hallway from this movie in every multiplex. Why would you waste any of your time on this?
No giant robots in Across the Spider-Verse.
Well,
there is one. There is one.
Yeah, that's right. There is one.
But I will also say this, like, I'm not going to put you on the spot here, Jeff. There is a bit of a generational gap here. And I grew up with Optimus Prime. I cried when Optimus Prime died. But I was a child, Jeff. How old were you when Optimus Prime died?
I loved the Transformers. You can go back to old episodes of the Totally Rad Show. When they announced the Transformers movie, I couldn't have been more ecstatic. I was like, this is going to be incredible. They're going to do a big budget Transformers movie. And then Michael Bay just took a crap all over it.
I just can't imagine. Like, I literally, like, do this mental exercise, Jeff. Like, if there had never been any Michael Bay movies, and this was the very first Transformers movie you watched, I gotta imagine Jeff Canado would be at least somewhat like. Imagine this movie from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You would have lost your mind. I predict you would have lost your mind.
I think if this had been the only Transformers movie, I would have liked it a lot more. But like the spectacle of the big robots punching each other,
you've already seen it at this point.
Right? Yeah. There's nothing exciting about that. And we got slightly different big robots punching each other. Okay, but that's the thing that bothers me is like there's no take here. There's no other than, yes, I love the representation. I do. I like that we're seeing, the human characters that are a little more interesting, a little more diverse. But like what they have to do isn't interesting.
Again, it's kind of the same argument as with The Little Mermaid. I think there is a take. It's poorly done. I will grant you that.
Yes.
But I think there is a take,
And the humans are also, we'll talk about this in spoilers. I don't exactly like where this movie goes, but at least the humans are more active than they were in the other Transformers movies, which was really just Shia LaBeouf running away from things.
I did interpret this movie as kind of, hey, if we could start on a fresh page with Transformers, like what would that look and feel like? And I'll say one last thing before we get to spoilers, which is, here's what I am bummed out about, is we have now had, 7 Transformers movies, and Optimus Prime has been kind of an asshole in most of those movies.
Not a great leader, this guy.
He's either been an asshole or kind of like an emo, dude just hanging out and spending time in his feelings, which is kind of a bummer because, I watched a lot of Transformers when I was a kid, and I remember Optimus Prime being kind of a noble, admirable character. And I feel like all these movies, this one included, have just taken that character and flushed it down the toilet.
Well, and this one technically will be before any growth that happened in the Michael Bay movies.
So there's anti-growth in the Michael Bay movies. He regresses. But to its credit, one thing I do like about this version of Optimus Prime, is he looks much more like the Optimus Prime from the cartoons. Like, his body looks like it could actually be a truck.
Right. And the transformations aren't as chaotic and jumbled as Michael Bay. They're still not great. It's still not what I was hoping for, which is like you see the toy transform.
Well, it's like there's a freaking the Transformers were literally a child could manipulate it and make it into a and
and that's cool. That's what's cool. That's what is cool about them, is that one form transforms into another. And there's a moment in this movie, I don't think this is a spoiler, but there's a moment in this movie when one character says, "What kind of car do you want me to be?" And it's like, it's like, that's the logic of the Transformers now? Is that they're just liquid metal and can do whatever they want anytime they want? I like the one-to-one, like, I am this, and I transform into this, and you see how the parts move, and it's never been like that on the big screen.
I mean, I'm pretty sure we've discussed on the Filmcast before that the Transformers movies have very little respect for the laws of thermodynamics, and preservation.
In this house, we respect the laws of thermodynamics.
Exactly. But in this podcast, we do that.
Right.
Okay, let's get to spoilers. Spoilers for Transformers: Rise of the Beast starting right now. All right, so here's where I'm going to give Jeff some credit about how bad this movie is, but also how good it is. There is the MacGuffin in this movie, right? Is what is it called? The transwarp key. The transwarp key.
Love it.
Right?
Love it. Yeah. 3 words.
And And what is amazing
Which-
about this movie is that there's a thing called the transwarp key, and there's a scene where the villain's henchbot, brings them the transwarp key, and the villain says, "You fools! This is only half of the key." And it's like, what?
My other thing I love about this is you have, 3-story tall robots who work for a planet-sized or bigger than each planet-sized robot.
Yeah.
The key, human size. Why?
I mean,
Why would that be?
You have to admit, though, Jeff, the planet-eating machine was kind of cool. Like,
I think it looked
I thought it was a cool design.
Sure.
Yeah.
For
sure.
as planet-eating machines go, I think it's cool design. But anyway,
Great voice work by Coleman Domingo, though, who has that voice of
Yeah.
just like, gravel. It's wonderful.
also terrible scene in the movie. At the very end, they're like, "Hey, everything's lost, guys. Like, there's no way they're gonna start the transwarp thing. They're gonna eat the planet. It's all over." And then he's like, "Wait a second. There's an access code that can stop." It's like, why not freaking set that up earlier in the movie?
Tell us
Start with
earlier.
access code.
It's literally just like 2 lines earlier in the film, and then this all
Yeah.
makes sense. It's
with
just
a
thing-
human-sized tunnel right to it. Yeah.
Here's,
and the
right to the-
Here's another
human-sized
thing
tunnel
that-
leading right to it.
that could have been set up and could have been amazing.
Yeah.
Is you literally have our main character turn into a transformer with a transformer exosuit at the end. This is an objectively cool idea that they completely bungle and make stupid because it's not set up. It's just completely arbitrary. And it's just Mirage going, I want to be part of you. And he just does it. There's no,
Well, they
like-
set it up with the arm thing, Jeff. They set it up with the arm thing. Come on.
that could have been the idea of making this whole movie about turning a human being
Mm-hmm.
to be able to stand toe to toe with a transformer. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And it should have
You
been
want
what
them
the
to get
whole
parts
movie was
like
about.
a
It
Mega
should-
Man game. You want them to get different parts throughout the movie.
Well, there
right?
should have been something, maybe there's,
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
something about Anthony Ramos, like his experiences have led him to the point where
Yes.
he can now
All my
become
life,
the
I've
all his
always
life-
wanted to be a robot.
Yeah,
No, but
just
just
let
like-
me be a
or
robot.
something,
Some active
some-
thing that
Yeah.
caused
Yeah,
that
yeah.
moment to be possible.
he was a
unique-
dancer. He was a
He
bouncer.
played with toys as a kid that could transform from a robot into.
He was a bouncer at a club, and that's why he can punch using
Well,
the
he was an
transform
Army Corps
gloves.
engineer, so
No,
but
but-
that's like irrelevant
or,
to him.
or something that happens to Mirage that allows him to like why.
Well, Mirage is like dead. Mirage is dying.
But it's the
basically.
weirdest moment. It's like
Yeah.
I can do this. I can build myself around you. What?
Yeah,
'Cause he's dying.
there's no setup for it. There's no setup. For
Yeah,
it.
No setup
It would have been
whatsoever. and
great. It would have been nice, like emotional climax of the movie if they'd have been set up better, right? So,
yes.
There is one good joke in this movie is like you don't want to know where that part came from.
Yeah, that's
you
fun.
know.
Well, my favorite joke in the whole movie is what? We're just friends now. You were inside me.
Yes.
That was fun.
Yep.
Okay,
But again, not for kids. Also, does any kid want to watch a movie set in 1994? That's like us going and seeing our
That's what
favorite
it
toy
is.
set in
That's what it is.
1954.
Mhm.
It makes no sense. Anyway, go ahead,
All
Dave.
right.
I'm sorry.
So no worries. Well, first of all,
You
Jeff,
just described Back to the Future, by the way, Jeff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
first of all, what you're forgetting,
little different.
What you're forgetting, Jeff Kanata, is I don't know if you guys noticed, but like, the suit that Anthony Ramos' character wears
Mhm.
bears a striking resemblance to those suits in G.I. Joe: Rise to Cobra.
Yeah.
So
Okay. I
maybe
didn't-
it's a setup.
That didn't even clock with me. Is that true? That's a thing?
I think it looks kind of similar. Yeah. No. Now, is it actually a setup? Who knows? But
I thought
what-
it was like, oh man, they want to Iron Man this up. So here's
Dude.
Squint, not
This-
Iron Man. This is not Iron Man.
This-
It's just wearing a suit. It's a
That
robot
last
suit.
scene to me
Yeah.
reeks of. We have no plan, but let's dangle something out in the audience and see if
Yeah.
anybody bites.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
the very
that
last
was-
scene. The very
yeah.
last scene is Anthony Ramos' character. He's interviewing for another job, and he meets with Doug Stamper from House of Cards.
Yeah.
And it's
Michael
like, why
Kelly-
is Doug
Michael
Stamper
Kelly.
in this small little role? That just
Yeah.
seems like a much too big
that
of
made
an
me
actor.
sit up because when Michael Kelly
Michael
appears,
Michael Kelly appears, and it's
you
like,
know
why
shit's
is-
going down.
Yes, and
Something's gonna happen.
and so then he goes to his wall and he like tips this like plaque on the wall, and my wife noticed it says "Real American Hero" on the wall.
Oh, dude, you
And-
didn't see this coming a mile away. I was like,
I
why
didn't
is the
see it
movie
coming.
still on? Oh, Hasbro Cinematic Universe. Here we come.
And then Anthony Ramos looks at the business card and it says G.I. Joe. Literally, my wife and I shrieked.
Yeah.
Like,
Movie
oh my
saved.
god! Oh
Movie
my
saved.
god! You know,
Yeah.
like movie saved. A Transformers G.I. Joe crossover, and again, it's like, you know, Jeff, look, maybe they're never going to make another one of these again, and this will be the last bit, right? But if this movie had come out
Yeah.
instead of the Michael Bay Transformers, like I'm
But that's
rewinding
not
my
the
life.
world we're living in, David.
If it had come, like, I would have been more excited about this than Nick Fury showing up at the end of Iron Man. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, well,
this
that's
would
where
have been
you
a
and I are
bigger
different.
deal to me than that. What'd you say, Jeff?
I said that's where you and I are different, but that's okay.
Yeah, but it's like,
I agree. That would have been an amazing thing. Like, if you could erase all our memories of all other Transformers movies and make this the only Transformers movie and erase all the G.I. Joe movies that we made. And
Well, I don't know about that. I like some of those movies, but yeah.
no, erase them.
I like both of those
They're all
movies. I like both of those movies.
No, they're terrible.
They're not.
They are. But then if you this movie leads into the first G.I. Joe movie, right?
Or
And
a
then
prequel
the
to
third
the first one.
The
Yeah.
third movie is the crossover movie.
Yeah.
That would have been amazing. But that's not the
mind-blowing.
world that happened, David.
I feel like the guy in a time travel. Well, actually,
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring up which time travel movie. I feel like the guy in a time travel movie. That's like, we can make it different, Jeff.
Oh,
we
I
can,
wish.
we can
I wish.
go back.
No,
we can go
you
back
do-
and do it over again. We can
You
go back
do
and do
the
it over
G.I.
again.
Joe movie, and at the end, Snake Eyes, walks out. He just defeated Cobra, walks out, and a red semi truck pulls up to him. That's how you end that movie? Come on.
Mind exploded. But this is as close as we can get.
I
because
mean-
because Paramount effed up how they managed, universe building for Transformers and G.I.
Yeah.
Joe. You know,
I will say this is more effective than anything WB has done. Like in terms of like out there
Absolutely.
setup, did not expect
absolutely.
this at all. We thought the G.I. Joe movies were dead. It was like, oh, G.I. Joe with robots.
Oh, okay.
I see.
Since you
Yes.
have forced the topic, Jeff, we need to relitigate G.I. Joe, the G.I. Joe movies, okay?
Uh-huh.
G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobra, I initially wasn't that big of a fan. It is, by many people's estimation, objectively a bad film.
Mhm.
But it's a lot of fun, baby. And and I mean, just the scene with the super suits is like incredible. And there's this extended sequence where I think it's what's her name?
I'm looking up.
Layer Cake Woman. Serena, what's her name? The woman from Sienna Miller.
Sienna Miller.
Is
Yep.
she the bad guy? And she's the bad guy
I
in the
don't,
Rise
I
of
don't
Cobra, right?
remember.
No one cares.
Yeah, so she's one of the bad. So it's this chase sequence with Sienna Miller and the people in the super suits, and then it culminates with them melting down the Eiffel Tower using a bioweapon, Jeff. Okay? Incredible sequence.
Are you listening to yourself?
Yeah.
G.I.
I
Joe,
mean,
G.I. Joe Retaliation. Much more self-serious, less goofy, but it has an awesome action scene with the Snake Eyes.
I mean,
and
at least
also-
we got the Retaliation trailer out of all these.
And also,
movies.
G.I. Joe
So it's good.
Retaliation has literally one of my favorite trailers for an action movie of all
Yeah.
time.
It's a great trailer.
Using the Seven Nation Army remix.
Mhm.
So I rest my case.
Do you?
Therefore, I want my Geos and I want my robots.
Hey,
Yeah.
here's
No,
what I will.
I'm saying those are like I think those are like solid action films.
Yeah. It's
Or-
also been 10 years since G.I. Joe
That's true.
Retaliation. We are due for this franchise to cook up. And I could just imagine how much fun somebody would have making a Transformers across G.I. Joe movie.
I think that
I
could be
do
really
wanna see
cool.
that.
And honestly, if I had the magic power to define what the G.I. Joe movie, the problem with the G.I. Joe cinematic representation, this the cinematic version of the G.I. Joe franchise is that they didn't realize that they're just superheroes, right? They need to have their own identities. They can't all be wearing the same clothes. They're not part of an army. There's literally a guy named Shipwreck who looks like he's a sailor. There's another dude. There's a guy named Tunnel Rat who looks like they have to be costumed like the Avengers. They have to look completely different from each other and have their own unique iconography. That's what G.I. Joe is. It's superheroes military style. And if they do the problem with the movies is they never got that. They only ever thought, oh, Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes are the only ones that have to look unique. No, wrong. They all should look unique. They are plucked out of their own little worlds and brought together to be a super team in the same way the Avengers are or the Justice League is. That's G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
And
there's never been a movie like 2000's Bryan Singer's X-Men that brought a bunch of weird superheroes together and had them all dressed the same and was successful. Right?
You think if they made that movie today, they would do that? They did that because
were more
nobody had ever done the other thing, David.
They differentiated after X1.
They didn't have the guts to not do it then.
They even made fun of it. I will say, of all the franchises The Rock was in, I'm surprised he did not take the reins of G.I. Joe and be like, this is mine now. Yeah. I'm going to run this franchise because he was in the last one.
Yeah,
there's a lot of potential.
He could have easily changed the hierarchy of power in the Paramount universe.
The Hasbro universe.
Jeff, can't you see that these summer movies are tearing us apart? This is
I
do.
That I see that. I do.
Anyway, so I'm excited about the possibility of a Transformers G.I. Joe crossover. Okay,
from the director of Athena. G.I. Joe versus Transformers. Yes.
That would be incredible.
But you think versus, or do you think they need to team up against something?
They have to start out as antagonists. This is how all these stories work. And slowly become friends and work together to fight a common Ray in the Sky.
Well, you don't fight the Ray in the Sky. You fight Cobra teamed up with the Decepticons.
Yes.
That's
right. We're producing.
By the way,
Ray in the Sky.
This all happened in comics. You guys know that.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
There's the G.I. Joe Transformers.
Many
comic.
crossovers, and now we're finally maybe have a chance of seeing that live out in real life. But
what a time to be alive, fellas.
What a time to be alive. I mean, there have been so many kind of aborted universes, like the Universal Dark Universe never came to be. We had the Mummy movie and then never heard from it again. DC has obviously been trying to start their own thing for like a decade and have kind of had limited success with that. But yeah, a Hasbro Cinematic Universe, now a possibility. Very exciting.
Thanks to the last 2 minutes of this movie.
The inner child in me is very excited about it. But you're right, the movie itself was not that great. It had some problems.
I don't know why my instinct is so certain about this, but I am 100% certain that there's like no active plans to do anything with those last 2 minutes. They just threw it in there to give you the experience that you got, which is fine. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with giving the audience that feeling, but I do not believe they did that because they have grand plans.
Perhaps. But we'll see. I mean, I think there's probably a big wait and see component about how well this movie will do, and it's doing decently. It's not like amazing, but it's doing decently. It'll probably have good worldwide numbers. So anyway, anything else about Transformers Rise of the Beasts?
We didn't talk at all about the Beasts, really. Like barely. We barely, because the Beasts are barely in this movie. What the hell are you doing, guys?
They barely rose. They barely rose at all.
Man,
I'm just curious how like Cybertronians are named. Like, his name is Optimus Primus. Is there like
Primal.
So there is a Primus.
Primal.
Optimus
Primus is the god, the creator god of the
there are different primes for different armies.
Mm-hmm.
It's like general or something. It's like you're the Grand Poobah.
But like the whole thing with Primus was like at the beginning of creation. Yeah. Primus is like some sort of like immortal being. I want to see Primus on the big screen.
There's so much lore we're missing out on.
Yeah.
In these
we
worlds,
established that the big bad guy, Scourge or Skags or what is it, Scourge?
Yeah, I think it's
he can shoot Gunkus on you and drive you insane.
Yeah,
but he only wants to use that once, and we never get. There's never any follow up on any of that.
I don't think he fully it's like he made contact, but that person lived and everybody else he just like killed. I don't know.
Yeah. They did Michelle Yeoh's Air Razor wrong. I agree.
They drove
she was the person in the zombie movie who was like, I'm fine. I'm gonna hide it. I'll be good.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. They don't seem to understand like what that does to you. Like, these are supposed to be advanced Cybertronians, guys.
It's
like,
so stupid. So many half-assed ideas. It's
Also, Dominique Fishback deserves better, but you know what? I'm very glad she and Anthony Ramos are in this movie to make some bank.
Hopefully
and go on
they
to do
got
better
their
movies.
bag. Hopefully
Yes,
they got their
yes.
bag from this movie.
Yes.
But
I did love the moment. There was one really cool effects moment where he is inside Mirage as Mirage is transforming around him.
Yeah.
That was pretty
cool.
sick.
When
Yeah.
like
And the-
Mirage like reverse directions or something.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it was. That was cool.
That chase was fun.
But yeah, I the thing that lingers about this movie is Optimus Prime is kind of an asshole. Like when he like murders, he's always brutally murdering his
Oh, yeah.
foes. There's
Yeah.
never any mercy shown towards them, right?
No.
And that happens in this movie too when he like puts the guy's head into the lava, right? Like it's just like,
Yeah.
dude, like
I mean, how much mercy that guy
Not a nice-
caused a lot of trouble.
not a nice
no, but
man.
you're definitely
Gotta
right, Dave. It's
destroy
a
him.
kids movie.
It's a kids movie. I do love that Peter Cullen still has that voice, and when
Using-
he gets mad. I feel it. He gets angry.
Autobots, roll out.
How
It's the only
dare
thing I
you
can
use
say.
how dare you use my own words against me? All right. Well, anyway, at the end of the day, it is really impressive that Stephen Caple Jr. made a movie. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.